Hi, my name's Aiden.
And I'm Jake.
And welcome to History and Haunts. Welcome back, guys. Why are you laughing?
What was that? Welcome back to what?
Welcome back to History and Haunts.
Oh my goodness.
You know, I put the little thing, my name's Aiden, I'm Jake, and this is History and Haunts in the beginning every time.
Oh, so, do you?
Yes.
Usually, I just let them play through.
Clearly, you have never listened to an episode. Clearly, I do all the editing.
This was all your idea, okay? You said you just needed me.
Yeah, really, you're just here to help me converse.
I am here to help you converse, and that is it. I have no other role. Unless you start collecting funds, then I'll get 50% of all funds.
No. Well, today's been a good day. I did a lot of stuff. I went on a motorcycle ride. It's a great motorcycle ride.
Yep. Yeah, it was good. It was a good
day for one.
Change of pace. Yeah, and a good day for one too, yeah.
We haven't been on a motorcycle ride in a minute.
No, well, because we've been working.
I know.
You got sick again.
Oh my God, I know.
Remember, it was so funny.
That's why we didn't record the podcast again.
The last time we did an episode, we were like, all right, we'll see you next time unless we get sick again.
And I literally got sick.
Yeah, like the next day, she was throwing up everywhere.
Oh God, okay. Anyway, back to the stuff. Yeah, beautiful motorcycle ride. I got to take a nap. I love taking naps, guys. I don't know if it's because my job is so exhausting.
You have such an exhausting day.
You are not allowed to talk. This man has been to work like twice in the past month.
I have. But I've been doing things.
He is what I call a PRN princess.
I get paid as a full-time employee. I use my own time off. I'm sorry that it just works out that I get days off.
And you don't go to work ever?
And I don't have to go to work, but I still get paid. Well, no, yeah. I feel like the last couple times I've been off, though, I've been doing like classes and stuff like that. Honestly, I've been pretty busy.
No, you have been busy. Yeah. That's why I wanted to do that. That's why I said, fuck going shopping today. We're going on a fucking motorcycle ride.
Okay. That's enough of that. You swear too much. It's time for an intervention. There is no need for any of that. Okay?
It's your fault that I swear so much.
It is absolutely not.
You
can't say that anymore.
I never asked my mom. I never swore.
I was just going to say, I think we need to pack your bag. You need to go to rehab.
Okay, guys. Well, today, we're going to be doing an episode that I guess has to be 2 parts. Because
possibly 3.
No, it's not 3 parts. It's just 2 because Jake won't sit here for the whole thing. It is
nobody wants to sit there and listen to this for the next 2 hours.
It wouldn't be 2 hours, I don't think.
Oh my goodness! And you know what? I don't even know what we're talking about this week.
Know what we're talking about.
So everybody's going to be surprised except for you.
It's 14 pages. I feel like maybe it's 2 parts worth. I don't know.
We better be doing 2 parts. I can't sit for 14 pages. I'm gonna fall asleep.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, well, today we're doing part 1 of 2 of Port Arthur.
Okay. What is Port Arthur? What is that?
Port Arthur is all the way in Australia.
Okay.
We're going to Australia today.
You got to give us some more information about that.
I plan to. I have 14 pages worth of information.
I know, but you can't, you just like, we're going to Port Arthur in Australia. Okay. Why are you doing it on this? What happened there?
If you would give me a minute, I would get there.
This is my last one.
It's your last podcast?
This is my last one.
15 episodes in, and he's still here after saying that every episode.
That's because you give me no choice.
I don't give you a choice. I'm saying, hey, we're doing the fucking podcast right now.
Oh. Okay, we also need to address what's with the podcast schedule? Like, when do you upload? Do you upload ever anymore? Or what's the problem? What's the deal?
We just talked about this. We do upload, but like, we've been sick. Hence the breaks.
I'm sick of you, man.
I'm sick of you. Anyway, back to Port Arthur.
So, should we expect episodes every Friday, or what is the problem?
Episodes every Friday. Unless we're sick.
Or that's
or we're tired. Or
Yeah.
listen, I got a full-time job.
There was one day that we were like, we actually, I think, recorded this. And we literally stopped because I couldn't do it.
That was last episode. We didn't record it this time because we had the puppy and I was exhausted.
Don't even get me started on that puppy.
It was like having a child. I was up all night. I think I slept for 4 hours in 2 days.
I've been up for 48 hours on an ambulance before, and I still didn't feel as bad waking up in the morning as I did with that puppy.
You know how tired I was? I don't like coffee, and I bought a coffee because I was so tired. So that's why we didn't record as well. I was sick and then puppy. Anyway, we're here now. So can we get back to Port Arthur?
Yes, let's begin.
Okay, great.
15 minutes out of 35 minutes is all you got. So you better talk fast.
No. So Port Arthur is a town and former convict settlement located in Tasmania, Australia. I already found some words that I don't know how to say. So we're going to have to pause and do a pronunciation.
Okay.
Port Arthur was named after George Arthur, who was Lieutenant Governor of Van Diemen's Land. And I looked it up just now. According to Google, it is Demon.
That's fine. It kind of looks like that's how you would say it.
It kind of does. This was the name of Tasmania used by the British during the colonization of Australia. So, yeah. But from here on out, we're referring to it as Tasmania, not Van Diemen's Land.
Okay.
Tasmania is just easier to say as well.
Sure. I mean, demon's like a 2-syllable word. It seems pretty simple.
Yeah, but you have to say Van Diemen's Land versus Tasmania.
Okay, I don't see your problem. I don't see a problem here.
It's also called Tasmania now, not Van Diemen's Land. The area first began its life as a timber station in 1830 before soon being converted to a penal colony, which it served as from 1833 to 1877. So it had a pretty good run there. In case you were wondering, a penal colony is a remote area that is separated from the general population that houses prisoners.
I'm already confused.
How is this confusing?
What was this land? What was it?
Port Arthur, it's a penal colony. A penal colony is a place separated from the general population where they send prisoners.
So this place was a prison?
Essentially, yes. But like a whole island, a whole colony.
Okay.
Port Arthur initially held those who were deemed the most hardened criminals, secondary offenders, and those who were rebellious in nature. First-time offenders were typically sent to work on farms, build roads, or work with small businesses. Despite it being deemed to hold like those people, a lot of the people that did come here were very mentally ill, and some even developed mental illnesses due to the treatments that they had.
This sounds like the last 6 podcast episodes we've had where they send the ill people to a sanctuated place.
I don't think
for treatment.
We've ever talked. Oh, wait, well, we talked about asylums, but this is like a prison, not an asylum.
Okay.
Because of like the type of people that they held here, they were said to have very strict security measures, and security was said to be so good that it was considered inescapable. But you know what happens when you say something's inescapable? Or like how they said Titanic is the unsinkable ship? Yeah, the opposite happens. So at Port Arthur, it really didn't do much to discourage prisoners from trying to escape, with a few being successful. Now we have the story of Martin Cash, and I'm going to discuss Martin Cash because he's just got like such a crazy story that I couldn't not discuss it. And he's one of the dudes who did escape Port Arthur.
Okay.
So Martin Cash was a notorious criminal who managed to escape from Port Arthur twice. So how secure can it really be? He was convicted for being a bush ranger, which is an armed robber who resided in the Australian bush. He was born in Ireland and brought up by a wealthy family, and at 18 years old he met a young woman who made her living selling hats and bonnets. She frequently borrowed money from him, but his mother was like, no, this is an expensive habit and you're done with her. So, despite him no longer giving her money, I don't know if they were like still together or what, but Martin was kind of jealous. And there was this man named Jessup who made advances towards the young lady. And so Martin shot Jessup and out of jealousy.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know. Pretty extreme.
Yeah,
Right?
what the heck?
He was sentenced to 7 years for this, but had 2 additional years added on, plus 4 years of hard labor at Port Arthur for his escaping. He later...
So he got 7 years for murdering somebody?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Jessup died or if he was just shot.
Oh.
Based off of the sentence, I'm thinking he was just injured.
Yeah.
He later had an additional 18 months added onto his sentence for his second escape. Martin made his escape by swimming through the supposedly shark-infested waters that surrounded Port Arthur in 1842.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. I'd be on the island. I'm not jumping into that.
No, neither am I. I'm not swimming through waters.
No thanks.
And I don't know if it's all of Australia, but I feel like Australia does have lots of sharks. Granted, Australia is like a whole massive place.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Australia.
Neither do I, really. Except that they're on like a way different time zone.
Yeah. And the toilets flush backwards or no?
What? Is that a thing?
I don't know. I think so.
Wait, would that be under the equator?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where's Costa Rica? Is that under the equator?
Are we under the equator?
No, we're not. Hold on.
Are we at sea level? No, I'm just kidding.
How do you spell equator?
Like that.
Like that? Is Costa Rica under the equator? No, it's 10 degrees north of the equator. Costa Rica is the farthest I've ever been, and I was like, damn, I never looked at their toilets to see if they flushed backwards.
We get it. You travel.
Do toilets flush backwards below the equator? No, they don't. That's a myth.
Are you kidding me? That YouTube video I watched where it said that is bullshit.
Yeah, you can't believe everything that you see on the internet.
Oh, really?
So during his swim...
Where'd you get all this information from?
I actually got this from like the Tasmanian archives.
Where's that at?
Tasmania? In Australia.
Where'd you get this information from?
The archives.
Which is where?
Well, they're on the internet, but that's because I don't live in...
That's fine. No. Just put that out there. Go continue.
That's because I don't live in
Just go ahead and
Australia
continue.
to go get the information.
Go ahead and continue.
So during Martin's swim, he had some companions with him too,
Mm-hmm.
and they lost their clothes, which they had tied in bundles above their heads. So they were swimming naked in this water. This part I think is really funny, because just picture these 3 naked men soaking wet, and you're just walking along, and then they come up and rob you and steal your clothes. That's what they did. That's what they did.
I just feel like I thought I'd start laughing.
Martin and his friends robbed a road gang while naked in order to get some clothes.
Well, why did they have their clothes above their heads?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they thought they would weigh them
This
down.
sounds like false information. If it weighed them down, why would they just leave the clothes in the water?
I don't know. I'm not Martin. After they did this, they then went on to complete an 8-month crime spree, during which they became known as Cash & Co. They had a whole name. In 1843, he found that his partner named Bessie had been with another man, and so he swore to kill them both. Martin's a very jealous man, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
He ended up running down the street, but was spotted, and he made a turn that led to a dead end. At this time, the constable had caught up to him because Martin's got nowhere to go, and he ended up in a gunfight with the constable. Martin shot the constable, and he died 2 days later. Because of this, Martin went on trial for murder in September of 1843 and was found guilty, sentenced to death by hanging. Can I just say that I feel like hanging is like one of the worst ways to be executed? I'd rather be beheaded.
Well, yeah, but it's probably a pretty instant death if you, like, fall from far enough.
If they do it correctly to where they snap your neck, yes. But if they do not, then you're left there to strangle to death.
Imagine, like, there's, like, the sensation of all that pressure on your neck, too.
I've been watching The Handmaid's Tale, and they hang people in that a lot, and it's just like, oh,
There's a
it's
lot of
just
shows on
awful.
Hulu,
Yeah.
and I was actually looking at that home screen. That person kind of looks like you.
Oh God, I don't want to talk about it. The Handmaid's Lady looks like me.
Somebody looks like you. Some crazy lady on there looks like you.
It's probably the Handmaid's Tale then, because the lady's a blonde, blue-eyed lady.
Yeah, it looks like you.
Oh God.
She was like staring at a mirror or something. I was like, is that you?
Hopefully this isn't a prediction of the future.
Oh God. I don't know anything about the show, man. I don't know.
You don't want to know anything about the
Just
show.
continue. Continue with your false information you got from the internet.
It's just accurate information.
Oh
So,
yeah, do you know him?
no, this was back in the 1800s. I wasn't alive.
Continue.
I feel like I'm on trial right now. So, Martin, he received a reprieve and was transported to Norfolk Island to serve a life sentence. He got married while in prison in 1854 and was granted leave that year. During that leave, he got busy, which resulted in him having a child born in 1855. Despite his life sentence, he was granted freedom in 1863 and lived until 1877.
Wow.
What a life Martin lived, Back to Port Arthur now. It took 20 years to complete, but it was like kind of an ongoing process because it was extended in 1855.
Mm-hmm.
It was built in the shape of a cross with a surveillance hub and a chapel in the middle with wings that stemmed off of it. All of the wings could be seen from the surveillance hub, so like that the guards could watch it, I guess. And at some point, there was an asylum built next to the prison. In years prior to Port Arthur being built, criminals were dealt with by torturing them physically as a way of punishment.
Fair enough.
Port Arthur signified a move away from this and a move towards rehabilitation. I don't really think Port Arthur was rehabilitating anyone, though. I still don't think prisons are really rehabilitating anyone, though. We haven't gotten to that point yet, to where we're actually rehabilitating people in prison.
I personally think they are. Confinement, leaving you to deal with your own thoughts. Like, why did I choose to rob that guy? Maybe I won't do it again.
Wow, that sounds like such a successful
I've got
rehabilitation.
8 years to think about it.
And guess what? They
Listen,
get
man,
out.
thieves, let them sit and think about what they did, man. Then you got to worry about, like, just staying alive,
What?
Well, like, people probably just beat you all the time and all that. Yeah, gangs in there. It's a stressful place to be. I'll tell you what, I don't want to go there.
I don't want to go there either.
I think they're doing a good job.
How?
Of keeping you, like, not wanting to go to jail or prison.
Yeah, but you know what? It doesn't really do much because people still commit crimes. Which is
I watched this video once of, like, the warden talking about like serving them, like, food. The prisoners were talking about how it's like it looks like it's got, like, dog food.
Oh,
And the warden was like good, don't come to jail. The food's disgusting. He said like he's talking about, like, getting rid of, like, the seasoning or something like that to save another 100,000 a year. He said, jail, you don't come to jail for, to eat the good food. I was just like, respect to that guy, man.
I mean, he has a point, but my point is that there's so many repeat offenders, like, no way prison is actually rehabilitating anyone.
Well, what needs to change?
I don't know, and I have too many other things that I'm trying to change to worry about changing the prison system. Like my hospital. I'm trying to change that.
Oh yeah, you're making some great progress with that.
So I will leave prison reform to Kim Kardashian.
Oh my God.
Kim Kardashian is doing that shit. Supposedly.
What isn't she doing, dude?
I don't know.
She ain't doing Kanye West anymore.
Oh my God.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, back to Port Arthur. So you're going to see why I think Port Arthur wasn't rehabilitating anyone, because the systems that they utilized are pretty shit. They used the separate prison system, which involved psychological punishment, aka psychological torture. They rewarded good behavior with larger amounts of food or tea, sugar, and tobacco. Punishment meant prisoners would only receive bread and water. I don't know how they didn't all have scurvy. This system involved the prisoner being in a cell 23 hours a day and completing some form of labor in the cell. They also implemented the silent system, and prisoners had to be hooded and they were made to stay silent. They could not communicate with anyone and were only called by their number, not by their name. The prison had even laid down mats so that footsteps would not be heard. It was like completely silent. Some cells had windows, but if they got in trouble, they would be sent to a cell with no light, and they could stay in there for a week to a month. It was supposed to allow them an opportunity to reflect on their actions. However, many prisoners developed mental illnesses from the lack of sight and sound.
That is insane.
That's enough to make you go crazy.
Because, like, right now I'm thinking, like, oh, maybe that, sitting in a room for a week in the dark, like, just because I feel so exhausted right now, like, that sounds nice. But what happens in, like, 8 hours or 10 hours when you wake up?
And it's still dark.
You're sitting there. You're not tired. You've got nothing else to do.
No sounds. No human interaction.
Yeah, no, not even like a guard to be like, to say like F you, No.
And you don't know what time it is. Your circadian rhythm, your internal clock's gonna be all fucked up.
Yeah, and it's like you're not like injured, so you're not going to be resting a lot to heal your body.
You're literally just
You are just going to be sitting there. Oh, that sounds miserable.
Yeah. So can you see now why I don't think anyone was being rehabilitated there? They're just all going to be going crazy. So poor Arthur thought reform could be done via religion, education, and trade training, which in theory is excellent, I suppose. But
You suppose?
Yeah. But Port Arthur was known to have very harsh and very brutal conditions, with some stories saying prisoners went so far as to murder someone just so that they could escape life at the camp. So now we're going to discuss some of the men that were sentenced here. William Thompson is the first one. He was convicted for burglary and sentenced to life.
Good.
He was sent to the coal mines to serve 12 months underground, and during this time, he was subjected to appalling work conditions and witnessed 2 accidental deaths.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Probably shouldn't have robbed anybody. No, you wouldn't have to have seen that.
You don't know what he was robbing for. Maybe he was hungry. Back in 1843, or whenever this was.
I've got no remorse for thieves.
I know you don't. I think it's because you've been robbed.
I have.
And so...
And I wish nothing but the worst for thieves.
You've experienced that, and you know that it can be such a violating feeling.
Yeah,
knowing
it was
that people are going
disgusting.
through your stuff.
Yeah.
And that a place that you thought was like safe for you is not.
Somebody is taking something from somebody else who worked and earned said thing.
Yeah.
It gives nobody the right to come and take it for their own needs.
No.
Why don't you go and work and get it yourself? You know what I'm saying? So I've got no remorse for thieves, and I hope that thieves get the death penalty.
Oh my God.
What? Oh, do we want to feel bad for the thieves?
No. I just think maybe we should death penalty pedophiles first.
Yes, but
you're like
thieves.
You're like, yes,
that was a little drastic. Okay now.
Sorry.
I'm talking about killing people like with the death penalty. Okay.
I know you're over here talking about kill them all, but me, that's too drastic.
Continue with the information.
No, I can see where you're coming from because you've been robbed. If I had been robbed at any point, I'm sure I would have a similar outlook on it.
It's also just how it's like the cops came and it like fingerprinted, and they were just like, all right, we'll let you know. And it's like, you guys, you guys are about to cold file this. Nobody cares.
No. Anyway, William, he was harnessed with up to 3 men, and they had to drag loaded coal carts. I just pictured like how horses do it.
Man, that sucks. Shouldn't have stole stuff. Wouldn't have had to do that.
He ended up at Port Arthur after being accused of spying on a girl while she was in the bathroom. So he probably
So you're
deserved to
telling me
be
this
there.
piece of shit not only robbed people, but now he's a pedophile as
Yeah.
well? Okay.
You're right.
This guy needs to die.
You're right. He can get the death penalty. During his time there, he was assigned to the timber carrying gang and the shoemaker's shop. Moving on,
I wouldn't buy any of his shoes.
Henry Singleton was originally sentenced for stealing shirts, but was sent to Port Arthur because he was constantly in trouble. He spent several periods of time in solitude, and at one point he spent a year in the separate prison. So Henry, despite being in and out of prison all of his life, he disappears from records in 1875 at the age of 65. So I'm thinking he probably just died somewhere.
What did he do?
He stole a shirt. Moving on, William Riley. He had a terrible hand dealt to him. He was abandoned as a child. He was charged with inoffensive orderly at 14, being drunk at 16, and then he escalated way up to murder at age 29.
Oh my.
He was sent to Port Arthur in 1833 for attempted murder and ended up killing Joseph Shuttleworth by striking him with a pickaxe while they were building a church. It was thought that Shuttleworth may have assaulted Riley, so Riley got revenge, and he was sentenced to hang. Now, Port Arthur was not only for adults. It also held young boys, with the youngest being only 9 years old. They were luckily kept separate from the main population at a place known as Point Pure, which is located across the bay from Port Arthur. This was actually an experiment in reformation run by 2 former convicts. The boys had a grim life as they were used in hard labor and forced to attend a weekly Sunday service. They also received an education of sorts and training in trades, although this was very limited and few boys made any progress here. They were probably understaffed.
Yeah.
They probably lacked teachers. Nothing's changed in 200 years. Within 15 years, 3,500 kids had been sent here, aged 9 to 18. Now, there's this one story named about a boy named James Lynch, which I feel like is pretty sad. This guy. You can't think of him negatively because he was only 9 when he stole.
Started young, huh?
Oh my God. He was convicted at 9 years old for stealing 3 boxes of toys. And he, at this time, had 2 prior convictions as well for stealing bonnets and stockings. He stated that a man named James Tucker used to come out and make him steal for him.
That may be
True.
True, yeah.
Maybe the little boy was hungry and James Tucker was like, hey, if you go steal this, I'll give you a banana.
I'll give you a sandwich.
Something. He was sentenced to 15 months at first for stealing the 3 boxes of toys, but this was later lengthened after he laughed in the chapel.
What?
Isn't that ridiculous?
Well, people are serious about their religion, man.
Yeah, but he's 9. He's 9. He's just a baby. See, this is like...
He's what?
He's just a baby.
Oh, okay.
He's just a baby. See, like James, he just needed some parents that would be like, no, this is not okay to steal. Do you know what my mom did?
What?
I forget who it was. One of my siblings, like they took a book and my mom didn't realize. So she made them take the book, take it back in the store, and go tell the employees that they stole it and were returning it. Like James probably just needed someone to do that to him, not send him to prison.
Yeah. I once walked out of Walmart by accident with a plastic rake. With a plastic child's rake.
Okay.
And my mom was like, well, we got it for free.
Oh my God! What the
It's actually crazy timing too, because like as we were leaving, like a cop like pulled in front of our car. I immediately started crying.
The cop's like, wow, that
but
boy
like
doesn't look
he was
guilty.
like doing something else, and we had to like go around him or something.
Yeah, I also don't think the cop is worried about a plastic rake.
No, I'll tell you what. I thought about that for like years. I thought for sure
someone was coming to get you.
Yeah,
they'd probably be coming to get your
I was
mom.
traumatized. Yeah, my mom was just like, oh well.
Oh, I mean, it was an accident, you know, but that's interesting. So, back to James. Oh my gosh, James Lynch and James Tucker, they both have the same name. Anyway, he unfortunately was not rehabilitated and spent much of his adult life at Port Arthur. So clearly the little kid experiment was not effective. Archaeological digs have been done at Port Arthur and found that the people that lived here participated in very mundane activities despite being in prison, like preparing food, hunting, and smoking. There were also workshops located on the waterfront that focused on trade activities such as shoemaking, blacksmithing. Is that a word, blacksmithing?
I don't know.
Is it a word?
Blacksmith is a word.
But blacksmithing?
I feel like there's another name, another
Probably,
word you could
right?
probably use for that.
Anyway, tailoring, turners, wheelwrights, and shipbuilding was also an activity here. The shipbuilding was introduced in 1834 and reserved for well-behaved convicts only. Up to 70 convicts were employed in these positions. And during their time, they constructed 15 ships and over 140 smaller vessels.
That's really cool.
It is. The shipyard ceased operation in 1848 due to a depression that occurred in the 1840s. The private shipbuilders didn't want to compete against the government, so they lobbied for the closure of the shipbuilding yard at Port Arthur. But the original residence of the master shipwright is still there, along with one original slipway. I don't know what a slipway is, but maybe it's like what slips the boats into water.
Probably.
It sounds like that'd be it, right?
I was actually just thinking, like, how did they get boats in the water back in the day?
Maybe a slipway.
Yeah.
Maybe a slipway isn't that, and we sound like dumbasses, but who knows?
Why don't you email us, guys, at History and Hostage? No, I'm just kidding.
The final two things that they did at Port Arthur were timber making and brick making. These workshops were implemented to help make the station profitable, along with serving as punishment for the convicts. By the 1840s, the convict settlement had reached a population of over 1,100. And because of the large population, Port Arthur frequently faced issues with the food supply throughout history. The food was supposed to be sourced from the farms at Port Arthur and other prison stations, however, most of it had to be shipped in. They were supposed to be like totally self-sufficient, but they just were never able to accomplish that.
Probably because the sheer number of them.
Yeah, that was a big issue. By 1844, actually, they had over 3,500 prisoners.
Oh my goodness.
I know, a lot. In 1842, they constructed a flour mill, a granary, and a hospital. The prison continued to expand into the woods that had like surrounded the area so that they could continue to get timber. So they chopped down the woods and built shit. This supplied building materials needed for both the prison and surrounding areas. And the job required dozens of convicts to work so that the heavy timber could be carried back. Because they didn't have like big horses to pull that. All the convicts were doing it all.
Well, they have enough convicts.
Yeah, 3,500, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 1850s and 60s were pretty busy years for Port Arthur. There was a lot of harvesting for timber done, and the old flour mill and granary were turned into a penitentiary. Some workshops were built for the sawmill, the blacksmith and forge, and then also a carpentry workshop was built. In the 1860s, Port Arthur was deemed to be in its welfare phase, with the construction of an asylum in 1864 and a pauper's depot. The asylum had wings where dorms were located around a central mess hall, so kind of like how the prison was built, same type of thing.
Okay.
There was a long wooden building which had single apartments for occupants who needed that. And like most asylums, the treatment was often not ideal and focused on providing a soothing environment that involved exercise and some form of amusement. They also had some work opportunities for the people in the asylum, but they were pretty limited. Most of them were either gardening or chopping wood. In the 1870s, the number of convicts began to dwindle just because people started dying off, and those who remained were too old, sick, or insane to be used for work, leading to its closure eventually.
Yeah.
There is a cemetery here at Port Arthur. My favorite thing, cemeteries. located on an island off the coast known as Isle of the Dead. Guess how many graves there are?
300.
No.
3,000.
No. 1,646 graves per the records. But only 180 are marked. Most of the marked graves are prison staff and military personnel.
Military personnel were on this prison?
To maybe watch the convicts or whatever. I don't really know.
Okay.
In 1877, the prison closed and sat around until it was sold in 1889. Most of the buildings were decaying, and the people of Tasmania were pretty happy about this because they kind of wanted to put some distance between themselves and the horrific history at Port Arthur.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live next to a prison.
No, especially one where people were kept in cells by themselves for months in the dark.
No, thank you.
Bad juju. The new owner began tearing down buildings, with fires occurring in 1895 and 1897 that further destroyed the prison. Just breaking everyone's ears.
Was that loud?
Yeah. Sorry, guys, he just hit the microphone.
Just cut it out.
I was mid-sentence. I can't cut that shit out.
Just restart it.
They did rebuild the clock tower, though, despite it burning down. In the 1880s, the town was renamed Carnarvon. Don't know if I'm saying that right. And it became known for boating, fishing, and shooting. Sounds like a real redneckville.
Oh, wow. You just assume rednecks are out there, huh?
No, I'm just saying, in here, where we live, boating, fishing, and shooting,
So,
pretty redneck.
We're rednecks?
We don't boat or fish. Or shoot.
I was about to say, what?
Anyway. No, I wouldn't consider myself a redneck. But we live in an area where there are lots of rednecks, I think. Would you agree?
Not around here.
You drive out into the forest? Definitely.
Not around here, though.
No, I guess not right where, not in our cul-de-sac.
Not like in our area.
2 cul-de-sacs.
Oh, great. Now everyone knows we live in a cul-de-sac.
There's a lot of cul-de-sacs in America.
There's a lot of... Never mind. Just keep going. Keep going.
The new community had a post office, a cricket club, and a lawn tennis club, which sounds like bougie shit, doesn't it?
It does sound bougie. Yes.
Yeah. The old asylum was used as a community hall and a school.
What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at them using an asylum as a school.
So?
It just seems weird.
Well, it's better than just building a new one like they are today.
I don't know.
Let's build 100,000 schools.
We need 100,000. Maybe not 100,000. Maybe just more than 3.
We have more than 3.
It's not enough.
I feel like all your siblings go to a different school.
No, they don't. 3 of them go to the same school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Focusing back on Port Arthur. Popularity was brought back to the ruins due to the haunting stories of the prisoners and talks of ghosts in 1907 or 1927. So the town name was changed back to Port Arthur. They eventually closed all parts of the town, and it was simply a place for tourists to come. By the 1920s, Port Arthur had 3 hotels, 2 museums, and guided tours. By the 1970s, the National Parks and Wildlife Service began managing the site and restoring the buildings. And in 2010, it was added to the World Heritage List. So, moving on, we're going to be discussing the Isle of the Dead, which is a 2.5-acre island adjacent to Port Arthur. Before the Europeans took over, the Aboriginal people used the island to gather food. And there's an Aboriginal coastal shell midden that contains shellfish, charcoal, and ash. It was originally named Possum Island in 1827. Did you know my least favorite word is possum?
Why?
Because you know how you had to do those reading tests back in the day?
Yeah.
Well, there was a whole story about a possum, and I didn't realize that the O was silent in possum, so I read the whole story as a possum. And I was pissed. Because I'm a perfectionist and I just fucked the whole thing up. My mom will remember this because I was so mad.
Did you fail the thing?
No.
Oh.
Convicts were buried on the lower half of the island with no headstones or markings allowed. It is likely that they had small metal numbers which are thought to have gone missing in the 1920s. Free people were buried on the northwestern corner, and their graves were marked with footstones and headstones. And like I said before, it was mostly prison staff and military members. There are 81 headstones and 5 footstones, which were identified and dated from 1831 to 1877. There are 4 marked burials that belong to former inmates that were free at the time of their death. And there are 9 memorials for the convicts erected after the prison's closure. In 1833, Reverend John Allen Manton arrived and selected the island to be used as a cemetery. And at this point, it was renamed Isle of the Dead from Possum Island. All prisoners who died at the camp were buried here, with over 900 people recorded as being buried. The actual number of graves is unknown due to the destruction of records, incomplete records, and lack of records for those who were free. Different reports of the number of burials range from 43 in 1836 all the way up to 1700.
What?
So quite a large gap. During the first decade of the island being open as a cemetery, the Wesleyan mission conducted burial services and recorded them here. In the first decade, 90% of burials were convicts, and 90% of those were under the age of 40. Really young, really young.
Not for back in the day?
I don't know.
That's a good full life, 40 years old.
I guess you're right. 39 of the burials were children from Point Pierre Boys and Reformatory Prison, and 26 of them were free people, including kids, government officials, soldiers, seamen, and even an officer's wife. It's thought that an elderly Aboriginal woman may have been buried here in 1833 as well. In 1843, the Church of England took over and kept records from 1850 to 1864. During this time, most causes of death were disease because many of the convicts had arrived from unsanitary and overcrowded places. Many had nutritional deficiencies because all they were fed was bread and water.
Oh my goodness.
And a lot of the diseases were dysentery, enteritis, fever, and respiratory disease. Among the young, the causes of death included thrush, scarlet fever, diarrhea, whooping cough, premature birth, convulsions, and suicide. A number of deaths were listed as accidents or murder. So they were really just all over the place in causes of death. Now, I don't know if anyone else thinks this is boring. Probably people do. But I always think it's important to learn about the story of the people in the cemeteries.
What do you mean?
Like
how they got there?
Like learn about the people that are buried in there, rather than just the cemetery itself, you know?
Wait, who learns about the cemetery?
I don't know.
That'll make no sense.
I'm in a whole group on Facebook about cemeteries, so I'm sure lots of people learn about cemeteries. But I like to learn about the people in there. I think their stories are so fascinating.
I think that's what fascinates a lot of people about cemeteries.
Think?
Yes.
Oh, well, then maybe people will love my Silent Soul episodes. I gotta do one of those.
Please do one of those.
Really?
Well, because I don't have to be involved in that.
Yes, you do.
What?
You still have to sit here when I do those.
Oh, I thought I did not.
No, you have to be here for all the episodes. Even my mini-series.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So,
I apologize.
Moral of my story is that we're going to go over a few of the deaths that we know of the people buried here. So, Dennis Collins died in 1833 at aged 58. He was sentenced to life for throwing a stone at the king.
Why would somebody do that?
Maybe he didn't like the king.
You deserve that. That is just stupidity.
Maybe he didn't like the king.
So let me throw a stone at the king.
Maybe the king was, not listening to the people and doing things that they didn't like. So they were like, hey.
So violence is the way to solve problems. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
I talked about this with people the other day, and on record, the answer is no. Violence is not the answer. But I don't know what Dennis was going through.
Sounds like a little bit of can't think of the word.
I don't know what Dennis was going through. That's all I'm saying. So Dennis ended up.
I'll hold you to that.
Dennis.
Okay.
Dennis ended up dying of suicide.
Don't forget to check us out on all.
Shut up. You know what? This is going to be your last podcast. I'm kicking you out.
Yes.
He died of suicide by refusing food, which today we would shove a tube down your nose and tube feed you, but
I have had one of those.
Yeah, awful. Not because you were suicidal, though, and wouldn't eat. Just to clarify.
No, I'm just kidding.
Reverend George Eastman died in 1870 at the age of 50 or 51. He was the chaplain at Port Arthur. He had a cold and had visited a sick inmate, and apparently his immune system couldn't handle it because he died 2 days later. He left behind a wife and 10 kids. Lots of kids. Henry Savary died in 1842, aged 51. His cause of death is unknown, but he was convicted for forgery, and he also wrote books. John Edwin Aspinall died at age 13.
Wow.
He was the son of an overseer, and he committed suicide by hanging.
That is crazy.
Very young. William Doody. He was a senior constable who died at age 54 after an accidental drowning.
How you accidentally drown? What do you think happened?
You can't swim.
Oh, yeah.
Or you're too tired, because you've been swimming for a minute, or you get weighed down by something.
That makes sense.
Final deaths that we know about in the cemetery that I'm covering is the crew of the Schooner Echo of Sydney. There was a shipwreck on the west coast of the peninsula, and 3 bodies are buried here with what is described as some bones of a youth. So, following the closure of Port Arthur, the cemetery was closed as well and sold as private land. However, the Tasmanian government reacquired the island in the 1900s.
Very cool.
And that is where we're going to end for part 1. Because that's long enough. That's all Jake will sit through. And also the second part's pretty heavy, so I figure we'll give you guys a break.
Pretty heavy?
Yes.
What do you mean?
It's a tragedy, what I'm going to be discussing next.
Oh, no. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it.
You'll be able to handle it just fine. But, yeah. Next week, we'll be discussing the tragedy at Port Arthur and also the hauntings. Hopefully no one thinks I'm insensitive for grouping the two together, but I just thought, with the tragedy, we'd include something a bit lighter. That way we're not depressing everyone entirely. But anyway, that's Port Arthur, the first part of it. That's all the history of it and all that stuff. Pretty cool place.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, guys. Well, stay tuned for part 2. I'm so excited. This is our first parter.
I know. Hopefully our last. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I'll have to look at the other topics that I have and see if any of them can be long enough. There
is no hint for the next podcast because
it's part 2 for the next podcast.
After that, because you don't even know what you're going to be doing it on yet.
Nope, I gotta make the episode.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Weekly episodes? Not anymore.
I'm about to go down the drain.
Once a month.
Actually, the podcast will be up for now.
You can't. Yeah, I'll pay you money if you end up finding something every week, do the information, figure the information out, write it down in an outline, and then we record it.
I actually have
all in the week.
Look how many topics.
You're not doing that.
I have a whole.
You're not doing that.
I have a whole list.
You take 3 naps a day. You're not doing that. You're not doing that.
I think part of the problem is my attention is very divided right now
Okay.
between work, union, podcast, and my other Instagram account.
Yeah.
Because I have to write letters for my other Instagram account, and then I have to write podcast episodes. I got a lot going on.
Sounds like it.
And depending on how my mood is, sometimes I'll be like, you know what? That other Instagram account is more important, so I'm going to work on that instead of the podcast. And then other days, I'm like, this is way too depressing. I'm going to focus on the podcast instead because I can't deal with that other Instagram account.
She has a very exciting life, in case you can't tell.
I go to work and I write.
Read and write and goes to work. What a nerd.
I am a nerd. But you know what? I'd say I'm relatively happy, so I can't complain.
Good. That's good.
Okay, guys. Well, would you like to do the outro, Jake?
It's really not needed.
Okay, well, I'll do it then.
Just no.
No. You snooze, you lose. Thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast.
Check us out on all the other sites, even though you just sat through 50 so odd minutes of this one. Give us another listen on one of those other sites.
You're not even saying the right stuff.
Email us History and Haunts podcast at gmail.com. Tell us how awful the outros are so we can stop doing them. And that's about it. There's nothing else to say. Don't follow us on Instagram. Don't even look us up on Instagram. Just don't even involve yourself. Just listen to this and just have a good day. Have a great rest of your day. And I hope life is treating you well.
I love the positivity. Until next time, guys.
I'll see you later, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.